Alright, I was at the grocery store the other day, standing in line with my groceries, waiting, go a couple steps forward while that person goes ahead, waiting. And I looked at the guy who was checking people out, and he just finished someone, and put their stuff, and he's waiting for the money, and he goes like this. And I could just see on his face, he wanted to be somewhere else. He didn't want to be there. And I looked at the other people. And there was one person checking out with a smile on their face, but it still kind of looked like, they're making the best of it, but really they kind of want to be somewhere else. And then I look at all the other people in line, and they're standing in line like me, kind of being like, yeah, standing in a line, buying my food. It's not that great. There's no sun in here. I'm kind of bored. I have nowhere to go. The only decision I can make right now is like to pick up some chocolate bar and add it to my groceries. It's basically just being a slave, and And I'm looking at it thinking, this entire situation is stupid. Why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense. This isn't how we should get our food. And that was a couple days ago. And right now we're staying on this farm. It's just a little farm. Most of the food, I don't even know if they sell any food. I think they must, but most of the food is just for the family here. And there's this little old lady who runs the place. I mean, she's the lady of the house. And she's been making us food. And she comes in with all this delicious stuff. And I look at her face, and she's kind of normal. And then she looks at us, and it's just this like twinkle in her eye and this little smirk of happiness like on her face. And I'm like, wow, these peas are delicioso. I say it all in Spanish because we're in Chile right now. And she just gets this look, like this beaming happy look on her face. Like, I mean, she doesn't say this. She's very humble and just, but I can tell inside she's just like, yeah, those are my peas. I grew them and I picked them and they are delicious. And that's what I want. Why aren't more people doing that? That's such a better experience. And I'm looking at this little old lady, and she's got so much life in her. Like when we showed up here, she took 2 of my bags, which totaled like 50 pounds, which isn't a ton of weight, but this is a little old lady. And she picks them up, and she's like striding across this field, like all the way to the house. And I'm like, oh, I can carry those, in my terrible Spanish. And she's like, no. And I'm like, wow, I don't know many people like 20s or 30s who are full of that much energy and happiness. So I think there's a serious problem in our world, the way we are getting food. Because I'm looking at this lady, and I've experienced this to some degree with my own little gardens, but I've never done it to the extent that I'm growing all my own food, which I hope to at some point in the near future. But this little old lady's growing all her own food, and she's just beaming with happiness and health and youthful vigor. And I'm looking at her, I'm thinking, this lady's got to be like 60 years old, just kind of, I can tell on her face and stuff. But she's cruising around like she's an 18-year-old, man. Like, psh. And most 18-year-olds I know are way lazier than this, and they got the life sucked out of them, and they're all gray-faced, and like, they stand in the grocery store to get their food, and they think they go to the grocery store and that's where food comes from. A lot of these people don't even know what a fruit tree looks like. And that's terrible. I think it's ruining our culture, and it's terrible and enslaving people. And why are we choosing to live this way? Well, I think a lot of it starts with just like TV and advertisements and all this marketing. These TV shows and all this stuff that says, wow, look at all this glamorous life where, people have nothing to do with growing food, because that's boring. I mean, you plant some plants and then you have to wait months or years for this food to grow. That's so boring. No, lickety snap, snap, snap. We got like fancy TV show with like, I don't even want to discuss the stupid TV shows we have on right now, because everyone knows what they're like. And the garbage they promote. So people watch that and start idolizing that and say, oh, well, I shouldn't be growing my own food. I should go to the store and eat out at restaurants, the fancy place. And then they start getting it in their mind that, well, you pay money for food. That's where food comes from. Food doesn't just grow on trees. That's craziness. But anyway, so they go around buying food, and that becomes a thing. And before they realize the seriousness of the problem, there starts being rules that you can't even grow food. Like a lot of places in the world, you are not allowed to grow food in your own yard, on your own property, on your own land. You're not even allowed to collect rainwater in some places. And these places are called like the most free places in the world, where people are free to do whatever they want because there's so much freedom. And you're not even allowed to grow your own food. Which is like just a basic necessity of life. Like, I am a slave to food, because without food, I die. And once the money becomes more important than the food, because I need the money to get the food, then I'm a slave to the money. And once you're a slave to the money, you're just a slave to the people handing it out. Because you can't live without this handed out money. And it's not handed out. They need you to do all this stupid stuff to get the money. Meanwhile, we could all be living happily, planting stuff, planting our own food, being so happy about, wow, look, I planted this 6 months ago and I'm picking it and it is delicious. The rewarding feeling of doing that, doing something yourself, is so great. It's so much better than getting a paycheck. But now we're in this position where a lot of the world is just not allowing you to grow food. And, you know, money has become more important than the food, and even more important than water. We're using money to get water. I mean, water is like, it's covering most of the planet. Okay, it's salty, but there's lots of fresh water. It should be free. Water should be free always. It falls out of the sky, but we're paying for it. There's something wrong with this culture. And, you know, a lot of times I say things about the problems with money, and I don't think that money itself is the problem. I think it's, you know, a useful thing to make transactions and stuff. But once the money becomes more valuable than the basic necessities of life, it's just stupid, because then you're enslaved to the money. Like, there are people who cannot get a drink of water without money. Like, how long is it going to be before we can't breathe air without this money? And we're just totally enslaved by the people who control the money. Oh, it's idiotic. Anyway, this is a frustrating thing, and I encourage anyone out there to grow your own food. You don't have to grow like a giant garden of all your own food. Grow a tomato plant, just to experience what a fresh tomato tastes like, versus the cardboard they sell you in the stores that's been on a truck for 3 months. Or if you're in a tropical place, just grow a banana plant. Oh my God, bananas off the tree are so delicious. And don't sit there and think, well, the number of hours I spent growing this plant, I could have made this many dollars and bought twice as much food. Because once you think about it like that, you're screwed. Because the thing about growing your own food is the first plant takes a long time. But once you've done all that stuff to be able to grow one plant, you've basically done the stuff to grow another plant. You just have to plant another one and just have a little bit more space. Planting 100 plants is not that much more effort than planting one. Anyway, I think this modern culture where everything is about money is just ridiculous. And we have all this technology now that we're not using to make our lives happier. We could be using it to do things like make growing food super simple for ourselves, and everyone could be doing it. Easy. We should not be spending 40 hours a week slaving away to barely scrape by. It does not take that much time to grow food and provide a house for yourself if no one's getting in your way. Alright, that's all I have to say about that. Man, it's so awesome growing your own food. I can't wait to grow all my own food, because it's going to be so sweet.